London. This building in the city is the home of Lloyd's, the world's most famous name in insurance. It's a place of tradition, but after 300 years of men only, women are at last admitted to membership. Countess Inchcape is the first member of the fair sex to be allowed to underwrite, but even so, only through an agent. She will not be allowed to conduct business personally. Among the strings attached to qualify for membership are necessary assets of £75,000. Lloyd's expect many more women to seek membership. In the Great Hall at Lloyd's is the Lutein bell. It is rung only when a ship is lost. May the Countess never hear it.
Something silly, jumping and taunted telephone.
The usual rate for hull and third-party liability?
Yes.
And £2,700 value.
I bet the chap. I'm sure he's a good sailor.
Gentlemen, a report received from Lloyd's agent Montevideo concerning the overdue vessel Salamander states that she arrived safely at that port early this morning.
Only one thing can silence the room, and that is one of the most famous bells in the world, the Lutein bell. It is rung once for bad news, such as the loss of an overdue vessel, and twice for good. And since it is only sounded 3 or 4 times a year, not even the most experienced member can hear it without a sense of drama. But the caller's job is usually less dramatic.
Henry Haymont Ricketts.
Anyone who wants to contact a particular broker in the room gives his firm and name to the caller. If you're on a gallery, your request goes to the caller by telewriter.
Ellis Buckle Higgins, please. Jones Baring Keeling. Lambert Innocenti.
Ellis Buckle Higgins. Thomas Brooks Wilding.
Excuse me, Fred, my name's just gone. Right.
The broker merely goes to the nearest of 70 special dials and dials his personal code number, followed by the number of the box where he can be found. The code number is automatically translated into his name, which appears with a box number on the indicator boards.
Jones Stewart Mortimer. Lamwell's Gibbs. Rain Brothers Dix. John Minette.
Fred, I've had a word with 1 or 2 underwriters, and they agree to follow you at 1%.
All right, then. I'll lead it off with 200,000.
Jolly good. Thank you.
Sedgwick Collins Powell. Franks Falls Black Shields. Fred Hall Yates. John Minette Cheney. Roger Locke. Robert Locke.
The committee room at Lloyd's is the most beautiful room in the whole of the new building. It was adapted from the original Adam Great Room of Bowood House, Wiltshire, the property of the Marquis of Lansdowne. Every member of Lloyd's, whether underwriter or broker, has to be elected to his membership by the committee of Lloyd's. The procedure of election is in the time-honored tradition of a London club, but there is nothing old-fashioned or club-like about the process that leads up to it. By the time a man's name is placed before the committee as a candidate for election, all the searching questions have been asked, the funds deposited, the securities handed over. The fact that a man is on the list of candidates means that he will be able to meet every obligation the rules allow him to undertake.
The 60 underwriting members have been elected. Well, gentlemen, that concludes the formal business of the meeting.
Not all of those elected as underwriting members will actually work in the room. The great majority of them will never write a line. They will be names, members of syndicates for whom the active underwriters will sign slips. For every single member of a syndicate, and some of them run into hundreds of names, must himself be an elected member of Lloyd's, with all the carefully ascertained security and reliability the phrase implies. One more link with the coffeehouse days, when underwriters, brokers, and master mariners sat at the same table. The members' restaurant is still called the Captain's Room. Members of the Honourable Company of Master Mariners still may and do use the Captain's Room. Pick out any 2 or 3 of these men at random, and you will find that in one way or another, their interests circle the globe, and Lloyd's eyes and ears are everywhere.
To Lloyd's, London. San Francisco arrival, 17th April. President Van Buren from Honolulu. Keystone Mariner from Yokohama. Flying Gold from Puerto Rico.
A Lloyd's, Londres. Llegadas Buenos Aires, 17 abril. Oswestry Grange de Liverpool. Aristides de Rosario. Río Tunuyán de Nueva Orleans. Marinero de Hampton Roads.
To Lloyd's, London. Sydney departure 17th of April. Orsover for Vancouver.
Lloyd's, Londen. Rotterdam, vertrek 17 april. Noors Commander naar Hamburg. Tarragona naar Barcelona via Antwerpen. Anglia naar Bremen. Gitte Toolstrop.
Lloyd's eyes and ears are the Lloyd's agents scattered around the world. A typical Lloyd's agent is normally, like this, a well-known local firm. Throughout the world, much prestige is attached to being a Lloyd's agent, and the privilege of displaying this sign is highly prized. Basically, the function of a Lloyd's agent is to be a source of shipping intelligence for Lloyd's of London. But they have other functions too. For example, a cargo arrives damaged, and there is likely to be a claim on underwriters. Lloyd's agent for the port is called in to survey the damage. His survey is expected to be, and is, impartial, and is respected by all sides. Here, 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, news arrives from Lloyd's agents, ship owners, and other sources all over the globe. All these facts are passed to the Shipping Editors Department, which publishes the second oldest daily newspaper in London, Lloyd's List. And for greater detail of ships' movements, they also publish Lloyd's Shipping Index, which reports on some 15,000 vessels and is reissued with an average of 4,000 entries revised every day. But not all Lloyd's information comes from the agents or ship owners. Sometimes it comes via shore radio from the sea itself.
Mayday, this is Henrietta Rose, Henrietta Rose, Henrietta Rose. I'm sinking. I'm sinking in position 5523 north, 0015 west. I am sinking in position 5523 north, 0015 west. Over.
Upstairs on the non-marine floor, our Australian bridge slip is nearing completion.
I've already checked on the flood situation, and I think it's pretty slight.
How much to finish?
25,000.
I'll write you 25.
Jolly good.
Gates, John Minette Cheney. Robert Long.
The slip is now complete. It is not yet a policy, which is a much more detailed document and is drawn up by the broker. But the policy and the slip have to be checked against each other to make sure they correspond. This is done in Lloyd's policy signing office by experts who can recognize at a glance the initials of hundreds of different underwriters and who know exactly what every abbreviation on the slip means. Hundreds of underwriters, hundreds of brokers, and thousands of transactions between them in every possible permutation and combination. A total premium income in the region of £300 million a year. When a policy has been fully checked, it receives the Lloyd's seal, and it is then a valid Lloyd's policy. A document tailor-made for today's needs, but with the backing and authority of 300 years of tradition, summed up in a seal. Our bridge builders can concentrate on their buildings in the knowledge of security. And our yachtsmen can set sail with confidence.
Prepare to hoist the mainsail.
Aye, aye, sir. Aye, aye, sir.
Hoist the mainsail.
Little ships, great bridges, ocean liners, aircraft, motor cars, almost every kind of risk is handled by the men in this room. Individually, they are underwriters and brokers. Collectively, they are Lloyd's of London.
This is the new face of London. Whether or not you like this style of architecture, you must admit it's impressive. Modern styles, of course, do vary considerably. These vast glass structures, although attractive, tend to be somewhat characterless. And in the city, for example, centuries of tradition cannot be overlooked by the architect. This place, abounding in tradition, is the home today of the world's center of shipping information and the great insurance market. And this is what Lloyd's of London looked like when it opened in 1688 as a coffee house. Coffee in those days had only been drunk for 20 years or so, and fashionable coffee houses were enjoying the boom that espresso bars are today, on a much smaller scale, of course. Each one attracted different sections of the community, and Edward Lloyd, situated near the river, catered for ships' captains and merchants. To encourage this custom, he even started an intelligence-cum-news service, dispatching runners to the docks to fetch the latest shipping news, which was read from a pulpit. As an additional service, he also held auctions. Let's listen.
Merchants or sea captains. They may have a sale by candle later on this morning. Ah, the coffee. Thank you, lad. Ah, the candle. As the flame is extinguished, the last bidder is the person who gets the vessel. Now then, see what you think of this coffee.
As you heard, the property being auctioned goes to the man who bids last before the candle goes out.
And 25. And 25. And 25. 1,200 guineas.
Sold to Mr. Durant for 1,200 guineas.
You're too late, gentlemen.
Because of this concentration of captains and merchants, the insurance brokers of the time began going here instead of from office to office. Needless to say, the business conversations were somewhat more protracted than in our reconstruction.
Right a line on the Worcester, going from London to China.
What's the rate, sir?
18 guineas per cent. First class risk.
Yes, all right then.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Captain Lyons. Very nice seeing you. How's business? Very well, thank you.
Anthony?
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we
like to ride a line on the Worcester? Yes. Reach China. How long, Mr. Lee? Come sit down, Mr. Lee. London to China and back.
How much to finish?
100 guineas, sir.
I'll write you 100 guineas.
Thank you very much.
How are you keeping these days?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, excellent.
Busy?
Yes, very busy indeed.
From that informal, almost social gathering grew the great business organization that exists today.
In the vast underwriters' hall, Lloyd suspended business for a time. The historic Register of Shipping received Princess Margaret in its new, very modern premises. The lutein bell was rung twice. Twice means good news. On this occasion, the royal visit. One ring, bad news. The bullion ship Lutein was sunk 160 years ago. Lloyd's carried the whole insurance, one of their bad days. The casualty book is still written up with a quill pen. There was no doubt of today's assessment of the princess. A1 at Lloyd's.
Lloyd's, that nerve center of marine and other insurance which is like nothing else in the world, has a new home. One of its most handsome features is the committee room, an Adams interior which was moved in its entirety from Burwood House, Wiltshire. But the day-to-day business of Lloyd's will be done in the main underwriting room, where guests are now gathering for the official opening. And it's to be a royal opening by the Queen Mother, who is welcomed at the door by the new Lord Mayor of London, Sir Dennis Truscott. Princess Margaret is with her. Their arrival is heralded by the sounding of the famous lutein bell. The Queen Mother and Princess Margaret take their places in the gallery overlooking the main underwriting room, which, by the way, is 340 feet long, twice the length of the room at the old Lloyd's. The speech of welcome is given by the chairman, Mr. Walter Barry. Lloyd's began as a 17th century coffee house where businessmen gathered. And the Queen Mother recalls the days when its waiters were the source of information and the bearers of messages.
Even in 1804, for instance, I learned that when the First Lord of the Admiralty declined to receive further letters from Lloyd's signed by a waiter, the committee cordially agreed and undertook that in future all communications should be transmitted through the secretary. They then very resourcefully appointed the waiter to the post of secretary.
After her speech, the Queen Mother presses a button to unveil a commemorative plaque. Lloyd's has come a long way in 3 centuries, from a Tower Street coffee house to one of the keystones of the world's finance.
the stove of balsa.
News of ships travelled slowly 300 years ago. But whatever shipping news there was to be had in London, it could always be found in one place. A coffee house in Tower Street.
Very nice to see you.
Good morning to you. I brought my young nephew here, Tom Grove, up from the country to see your shop.
Good morning, Mr. Grove. How do you do, Mr. Lloyd? Sorry.
Lloyd's Coffee House, a place where mariners, merchants and moneyed men came to enjoy the strange new beverage.
Ah, the coffee.
Here, Edward Lloyd had the foresight to provide not only coffee, but also a service which was useful to his particular kind of customer.
Listen, Tom, the kidney's going to make an announcement.
Gentlemen, Dolphin of and for Bristol arrived here from Nevis. The latter was taken by a French privateer on the 23rd instant, but was retaken in 6 hours after by Captain Jumper in the Weymouth frigate.
Ah, splendid. That's wonderful news. Very reassuring.
Very reassuring to Mr. Lloyd's customers. For this was becoming known as the place where insurance could be arranged on vessels and their cargoes. The procedure was simple. A broker seeking insurance for a vessel went round the coffee house, inviting men known as underwriters to accept fractions of the risk in exchange for corresponding fractions of the premium.
London to China and back. How much to finish? 100 guineas, sir. I'll write you 100 guineas. Thank you very much.
Steamer Empire Premier on fire.
3 centuries later, still Lloyd's and still coffee, but many things have changed.
Big value. You got a big line on it? Big enough, I expect. How'd they put a fire like that out? Well, they use the ship's resources, of course. Then if it gets beyond that, there's not much you can do.
Hulls, cargoes, passengers. Then a 3-masted schooner. Today, a great airline. If insurance was vital to the 17th century master, it is far more vital today. Because economic life is infinitely more complex. Some things our forefathers would still recognize.
Oh, yes. And another ton of the same fertilizer. Try to let me have it by Wednesday, will you? Then I can spread it before the weather breaks.
I'm sorry, they're going.
All that interests me is that I get to Bristol on time and in comfort.
Charles, you've no soul.
As my body's going to Bristol, not my soul.
Plutonium, and thus creates a new fuel for reactor use. A reactor utilizing plutonium for power production, but incorporating U-238 into construction.
But you'd better make it 7 next month. And listen, we must get together sometime over the sheet metals.
Wouldn't dream of having less than fully comprehensive on a job like this. That chap who pranged me in Exeter only had third-party fire and theft. It must have cost him a pack in patching up his own.
It'll be a warm time. Just leave it to me. 3 hours, skipper, that's all. We'll have it stripped down and reassembled by then, and you can leave for the Gulf with an easy mind.
Now, there's no need to be anxious, Mr. Fowler. When do the pains start? And how frequent are they? Oh, yes. Well, it won't be for a while yet. The ambulance will be there soon. Are her things packed? Well, just give her a cup of tea with plenty of sugar and keep her comfortable and tell her not to worry. Yes, they know the way.
Daniels passes it to Griffiths. Brian Bevan gets it for Warrington and makes a brilliant dash. He flicks the ball out.
I would remind the honourable and learned member that the Minister is appointing a small steering group to assist the study being made of the developing problems of roads and traffic in urban areas.
A 1,001 human activities, 1,001 risks, so complex that no one insurance expert could understand them all, so varied that they demand a concentration of equally varied specialists, each expert in different fields to meet all their needs. Such a concentration is Lloyd's of London. The costumes have changed in 300 years, but the name and the nature of the business are the same. This is still Lloyd's of London, the lineal descendant of the little coffee house where brokers offered risks for underwriters to insure. And these men, members of Lloyd's, are still brokers and underwriters, members of a vast organization that is still growing. This handsome building, to which it moved in 1958, is its second new home in 29 years. One reminder of Lloyd's coffee house origin. The uniformed staff are still called waiters. And a most impressive reminder of Lloyd's long association with the sea is the Nelson Room. Lloyd's have always had an obvious interest in a strong and effective navy. And early in their history, they began the practice of making awards for meritorious service at sea. Lloyd's made 2 awards of silver plate to Nelson after the battles of the Nile and Copenhagen. And in due course, some of this plate was presented back to Lloyd's, forming the nucleus of their present Nelson collection, which includes such items as this Trafalgar log. But all these are merely the antechamber to the place which is the heart, the focal point of Lloyd's of London.
Adam Runners Moffat, Leonard Hammond Mockfall, Hog Robinson Harris.
This is the room, and it is never called anything else but the room. Here the underwriting goes on as it did in the coffee house of 300 years ago. The boxes, where the underwriters work, are still obviously patterned on the tables and benches of the original coffee house. Modern Lloyd's is 2 things, a corporation and a competitive market. The corporation does not itself do insurance business. As in the coffee house days, it is the individual underwriters who do that.
75,000. That's 3% of the 2.5 million value. Yes, that's all right on a new British tanker.
By the way, are they using kerosene?
I can't guarantee that. I know that nowadays they're trying to enforce it.
About 10 miles offshore from New Orleans.
Well, John, this is, I believe, operating in the Grand Isle area. And I think from what we had before, she's probably in about 60 foot of water.
They're asking for $1 million coverage, excess of $1 million each and every loss. The premium, I think you'll agree, is adequate, considering their total volume and their very spread underwriting.
Yeah, she's a beauty, £40,000. She's warranted 6 months laid up during the year. She's only used for private and pleasure by the owner. She's not worldwide or agui.
I wouldn't give you any reduction for that. I write you that at 22 and 6, mate.
Lindsay, Crawford.
But one thing has changed, or rather developed from those early years. There is now a gallery floor devoted to non-marine business.
Well, Mr. Lomax led the slip, personally. Oh, did he? That's a help.
Get to that, please. That's all I have today. No more for me? Thank you, sir. Well, now I'll leave that. I think there's a broker here. Hello, Paddy.
Good morning,
what have
sir.
you got for me?
Well, first, sir, there's a request to insure an extension they've built to a small printing works in Carmarthen. You may remember writing me a line on the main buildings a couple of years ago.
All right, let's have a look. Expanding already? There must be a go-ahead lot. Printing all those long Welsh words, I expect. Look that up, please. Have a sit down, Betty.
Thank you, sir. Yes, they're a go-ahead lot, but pretty sound, I think.
Lazy, Porrent, Jones, Stewart, Montemap, Lamwell.
Oh, I see. I've got 2 lines on this risk. One on the main property, 1 loss of profits. The leading underwriter. McKinley. Got a good line, £15,000. I'll write you £5,000.
And where is it being processed?
It's being processed in the States.
So that means that the film will be flown back, the daily takes, I take it, to America as soon as possible.
Quite right, sir.
And how much is the cover for?
$500,000.
I've 10 mares and fillies, 2 stallions, coming from America via this country to Australia. Any idea how many vehicles were?
15 on
15
the schedule now, yes.
I see it's no answer to long-distance haulage.
No, it's predominantly local haulage.
Basically, the procedure is the same as it was in the coffee house. The broker's slip sets out, in abbreviated form, the risk to be covered. And when an underwriter writes a line, he is indicating what part of the total risk he is prepared to cover in exchange for the equivalent part of the total premium. The rate of premium is agreed between the broker and the first underwriter who writes a line. So the broker looks for a leader whose assessment of the rate other underwriters will accept.
So this Norwegian fleet has shown you a pretty good profit.
Well, I think for your account, the figures are very good.
Well,
They are in kroner, are they not?
They are. They're all in Norwegian kroner. And I think with this result, you ought to give me a little off of it.
In the center of the marine floor of the room is the loss book. Every vessel that is a total loss, or likely to become one, is entered here. The loss book has changed little since it was started in 1774, and entries are still made with a quill pen. Mr. Johnson can remember many historic losses since he first came to Lloyd's as a boy.
Lashed by angry seas and a wind of hurricane force, the freighter Flying Enterprise battles for her life off the coast of Cornwall. The cargo of pig iron and coffee is thought to have broken loose, causing the vessel to list dangerously. Her captain is still aboard, hoping some miracle will save the ship.
And non-marine losses, like the tragic end of the Hindenburg.
Famous airships, the Hindenburg. On a routine scheduled flight from Germany to New York, carrying passengers and a full crew, the airship suddenly becomes a holocaust. Heedless of the danger from burning gases, brave men rush into the wreckage to help the injured, but others beyond help perish in the flames. Many die in the Hindenburg's ashes.
Or the spectacular collapse of the Tacoma Bridge.
Bring about the collapse of one of the world's biggest suspension bridges. A 35-mile-an-hour wind is blowing, enough to set up a rhythmic swinging of the bridge, which increases alarmingly. Road and suspension cables give way to plunge into the raging waters below. The only casualty, a car stalled on the bridge.
A sixth sense, whose other name is experience, tells a Lloyd's underwriter what are the chances of success or failure, of achievement or disaster, with all the intermediate grades of minor loss, for every risk he is asked to handle. Let us follow the story of a typical risk. Everyone knows you can't cross a bridge till you come to it. But not everyone stops to realize that you wouldn't even start building it till you've insured it.
Makes it a lot easier being well outside the earthquake area. Records show this part of South Australia to be pretty clear. Not a tremor.
Yeah? I'm glad we haven't got that to worry about.
I suppose you'll be establishing the very first thing. Do you think you'll be able to get boats up here at all states of tide?
Yeah. We're going to build a landing stage over there. I intend to get all the equipment up by the end of June.
Then we'll be able to start work early in July.
Fine. Now, Mr. Young, let's have all the details. First of all, what's the final contract value?
Our bridge builder is now in the London office of a Lloyd's broker. If he'd not been coming to London anyway, he could have insured at Lloyd's just as easily from Australia. For Lloyd's brokers have professional contacts all over the world.
The risk of flood, really, you would say, was pretty remote, wouldn't you?
Absolutely negligible. As a matter of fact, I checked on this, and there's no record of flooding in this part of Australia at all.
Well, that sounds fine, because as you know, underwriters get a bit scared sometimes.
Next, the broker visits the non-marine floor of the room.
I remember that contractor's list we wrote some time ago, but I'd like you to lead this Australian bridge project for me. I think it's right up your street.
Well, let's have a look at it.
Well, there she is. The Kootaboula Bridge contract. All 1,600 feet of her. There are 2-lane carriageway and footpaths, and 4 piers.
You know, some of these Australian rivers run pretty swiftly. What's the flood situation?
In this case, the bridge builder was an expert, used to insurance procedure. But to some clients, it's a complete mystery.
Well, I know you'll be pleased with her, sir. She's easy to handle and she's a good seaboat, too. I've had her out myself on a Force 5 with no bother at all.
Well, I'm glad she's steady. I've never owned anything larger than a Firefly myself before. I must say she's got very nice lines for a 4-berth job. By the way, what should I do about insurance? Do you know anybody?
Well, plenty of Lloyd's brokers are keen yachtsmen and come to the boat show.
Lloyd's? Well, I thought that was Queen Mary level.
Well, it is, of course, but they handle the little stuff, too. Look, one of them's a friend of mine. He's here today. He's not on business, of course, but he'd be just the chap to advise you.
Good, then perhaps we can meet him.